Bun regăsit, prieteni! Așa cum am promis, astăzi vă aștept cu un interviu fulminant cu Julia Mossbridge, profesor universitar doctor al Universității San Diego din Statele Unite, a cărei muncă se concentrează pe experiența neurologică a conceptelor de iubire și de timp în căutarea umanității din noi cu ajutorul tehnologiei. Julia Mossbridge, profesor universitar doctor, este fondatoarea a două institute de cercetare, unul care poartă numele Mossbridge Institute și al doilea specializat pe neurologia iubirii și a timpului și chiar se cheamă The Institute for Love and Time, Institutul pentru Iubire și Timp. Ea este și profesor pe aplicația de meditație și mindfulness Insight Timer, este scriitor și are mai multe cărți publicate în aceste domenii.
Your work is covering a lot of things, which might seem a little bit controversial for the regular people, but that have a very deep meaning and are a gift for whoever knows how to listen to it. I mean, love, time, and you're calling the work of your soul. If you could tell us what made you choose these topics to work on?
Oh, I don't feel like I had a choice. It feels like this is what I was born to do. Like, there's nothing else seemed as interesting. And this is, I don't know how to say it. It's like, this is where I put my time, and I don't feel so in control of that. It feels like, and that's how I think about a calling anyway, right? It's the words, the calling or a calling. It's as if you have to listen, right? As if someone's calling you and saying, "Hello, Julia." "Hello, Catalin." You know, it's a deep listening process to what is calling you to do work in the world that feels like it brings out your gifts and supports the world. And so, you know, it takes some time to figure that out. It's not like it's easy, but it's a process of listening rather than choosing, I think. I think you'll see my husband walking around behind me.
It's absolutely okay. That brings me to another question. You say that your calling is calling you practically. So does everyone have a calling?
I think so. I do. I think so. And there's a lot of myths about what we think a calling should be. When we start thinking about a calling, sometimes we can make the mistake of saying, well, it has to be, you know, everything I do for work, or it has to be nothing that I do for work, or it has to be something that fixes everything in the whole world, or it has to be something that has to do with my family, or whatever rules we have about what it is. And much to my amazement, those rules don't apply. So it's just allowing yourself to discover what it is. It can be anything from, I've had a student in my class who's calling, I'm talking about the class on Insight Timer, or who read the book, I forget, whose calling was, what was it? To bring people joy through laughter, right?
How nice.
And
very
so
beautiful.
Yes, and she was a comedian, and so that's her calling. And so it doesn't have to fix all the ills in the world. You know, we don't have to be Mother Teresa or whatever our ideal might be for compassion. It's just doing the thing that has sort of been implanted inside of you, and inside, like as if you're a seed, and from the very moment you were a seed, this was inside of you, and you grow into this particular kind of tree, you know, based on the directions or the blueprint that's inside your soul, kind of like that.
I see. Now, this brings me to two chained questions, if you like. One, is there any relationship between the calling as you see it and the Japanese concept of ikigai? And the second question is, I'm a regular Joe. I have a day job, I have bank loans, I have a mortgage, I have a family that I have to support, and that makes me happy or not happy, and so on. It's a lot of mental noise. The calling isn't shouting, as far as I understand. It's a whisper. How can I identify that whisper in the first place and then follow it?
Yes. So ikigai is a reason to live. It's translated as a reason to live. And I don't know how good that translation is because I don't know Japanese. But in terms of the idea of a reason to live, it's similar, except the reason to live is actually, sometimes people can think of that as a justification for living. Well, I should live, or I no longer feel, so some people have said, I no longer feel that I have a reason to live because I don't know what my calling is. And that's a myth. It's a myth that your calling is your reason to live. The reason to live is inside of you. You're alive because the universe wants you alive, period. You're alive. If the universe wanted you dead, you'd be dead. So you don't need a reason to live, right? And so to me, it's more like that within you that gives things meaning, right? That gives your work and your play and your hobbies and your conversations meaning. That's more like what it is. So if that's what ikigai should truly be translated as, that which gives meaning to your life, then that would make a lot of sense. In terms of the first step towards listening to the quiet voice of your calling, my first recommendation is getting familiar, maybe even friendly with that quiet voice. So average Joe person, right? I've done a lot of academic stuff and all this, and I'm not an average Joe or Jane, but I know plenty of average Joes and Janes, and I have been an average Joe and Jane in many other fields, or at least a Jane. And so, I mean, the easiest thing is just to sort of to consider that there's a part of you that is very intuitive and might know things that you don't consciously know. So, in other words, we know for sure scientifically that there's unconscious processes going on in your brain that you don't control. Like if you try to breathe a certain way and think about it, it's really hard. If you try to tell someone what to do if they're going to walk, you can't do it because you do it unconsciously. You don't know. You don't know. And the same goes for intuition about your calling. You could be very unaware of it, but it's kind of inside of you. And so it speaks very quietly until you're ready to listen. So getting ready to listen means becoming friends with that part. So maybe you get a little notebook or take your phone and you write down or do a voice memo, voice recording, every time something like, oh, wait, I felt like that was going to happen. Or wait, I didn't want to talk to that person, but I made myself do it, but it turns out that was a bad conversation. Some part of me knew that I should have not had that conversation, right? These kind of things that happen to all of us, getting to be friends with that part, it will get louder and louder the more we're friends with it.
So it means that one has to be mindful of one's own little nuggets of intuition that turned out to be right. Okay, now for the average citizen of the capitalism world, that's some kind of a tall order because we're steeped into a lot of noise, a lot of stress, a lot of mindless agitation.
Well, and we're also being distracted on purpose by social media companies that know that if they can addict us to their content, then they make money. So, so yes, there's a lot of noise. And so it's a discipline. It's a mental martial art to become friends with your intuition. It's really a discipline. And it's a powerful one. So right? We know that the more people are attuned to that, the more they're able to respond more appropriately in situations, not react. Instead of reacting to something that could get them in trouble or make a dangerous situation out of something that wasn't dangerous, they can respond appropriately because they're more mindful.
I see. In to my ears, it sounds familiar because, among others, I'm a mindfulness teacher, and it's one of the things I say to my students. But returning to your, I like the expression "your soul's work." Um, it takes discipline, it takes some mental effort, it takes attention, which means it takes brain energy.
Yes.
And the citizens of the capitalism planet always need a what's in it for me reason to make that practically it's an investment of energy.
It is. It is.
What do they what would someone get from listening to that whisper and identifying their soul's work?
Joy. So there's so much depression and anxiety.
Yeah, that is.
Yep, there's so much belief that we should be different than how we are. There's so much belief that someone else's way of being in the world is a better way of being in the world, and that we need some kind of product or service to make ourselves better. But tuning into what is true inside of yourself and seeing your own beauty and listening to your own wisdom brings joy. It actually helps you break through. The effort is small compared to the powerful impact it has, right? Yes, there's effort, but it breaks through the capitalist haze, right? Which says, capitalism is a really amazing system that can really motivate people to make amazing things. So, okay, that's true. And it could also convince you that you're never okay.
True.
And so this is a way to find out exactly how okay you are, beyond okay. The beauty, I mean, the profound beauty that is inside of people. Then you get to be your own, have your own compass in all the noise.
So if I get it right, I'd say that the ROI is immense with joy, with authenticity, two things that do have a lot of value, not economical always, but they might have an impact there too. And also that you can find some inner peace.
Yes. Yeah. Because if you're always being tossed around and you don't really have an internal compass that tells you this is part of my work, oh, all this other stuff, 98% of this other stuff is not part of my work. But this 2%, this is my work, it's much more relaxing.
I see. That's very interesting. In my timeline, it comes right after the Professor John Vervaeke's Meaning Crisis series, and it aligns very well. And I'm glad that you bring practicality and actionable things to these discussions, which I love, because this is our promise to our audience: practical, actionable, scientific knowledge to be put into life. And talking of that, I've been amazed while researching for this interview that you built the time machine, the Curiosity AI, and the Vis-a-Vis app. It was mind blowing. Can you tell us a little bit about those? I love the concept, the ideas behind them.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And all three of those technologies are things that I did to greater or lesser extent with the rest of my team. So it's not just me. And so the team is at the nonprofit called TILT, the Institute for Love and Time. And we create technology that is science-based and yet is on the cutting edge of science, and really focused on unconditional love and mental time travel. So there's a psychological principle that's been very clear in terms of treating people for PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, which is that if you help them see once they're through a trauma, if you help, so I'm going to give an example of a Israeli soldier who experienced an explosion, and he was right next to it. Now he just got a little bit hurt, but not much, but he saw another human being actually explode. So it was very traumatic. So for years he had nightmares, he couldn't work. The Israeli army didn't know what to do. So they hit upon this type of psychological work where they said to him, you know, it's 2011 and you are safe, but yourself back then is not safe and needs your help. We're going to have you imagine yourself now with all your wisdom now in 2011. Go back and you're going to help yourself. And they did that. And they had him imagine both from the point of view of back then and from the point of view of now, that there were these two versions of himself and they were helping him realize you're going to be okay. And it was really scary, but you're going to be okay. So and it worked, like it reduces PTSD. So that's called mental time travel therapy or time travel narratives therapy. We take that and we scale it using timemachine.love, which is our first technology that will be fully launched very soon, but you can try it for free, and it'll be free as far as we can tell forever. And what it does is it allows you to record a message to yourself that you then hear the next day, so that you can experience over time this strengthening that happens when you realize, oh, I can connect internally with my past and future selves. So that's timemachine.love. Vis-a-vis is a gazing app where we can just look at each other's eyes, nothing else. There's no sound. I can't hear you. You can't hear me. But we're both listening to a recording of an audio about a meditation about unconditional love at the same time.
So it's human to human.
Human to human, and we're both listening to a recording about love, and so we're seeing each other's eyes change with the recording. And so that's in prototype stage. That's not complete yet. And then there's Student of Humanity, which is a generative AI through the generative AI store, the ChatGPT Gen AI store. And anyone could go and try that. It's now available to everyone. It's not complete either. I have many more things I want to do. I want it to be global. I want it to use languages other than English. But it's trained to be unconditionally loving, and it uses a Socratic approach. So it asks you questions about your wisdom rather than telling you things, which I really like because it draws out the incredible wisdom that people have inside of them. So those are the three technologies that we're working on at Tilt.
There's one more thing, Professor. One of the important things that I took from your course on Insight Timer was something that surprised me. You call it the truth reaction.
Yes.
Which was quite mind-blowing, I have to say. I never listened to my body so intently before, although I do body scans and so on. So I would like to ask you a little bit about your choice compass.
Oh, well, briefly, let's tell people what the truth reaction is, so
Sorry,
they know.
yes.
Yeah, and then I'll talk about choice compass, but the truth reaction is like a physiological body response, the way your body feels when you hear something that's true. And it's really useful. It's like your own internal compass is this true or not? Or is this true for me or not? And it cuts through all the BS and allows you to say, okay, so you can be somewhere and someone could say something, and you could, does this feel true? You know, for me. And the way you do it is the way you find it is by practicing saying out loud something you know is false, seeing how you feel, really noticing. Say out loud something you know is true. Like for me, I'm tall, so I might say I'm 5'11" and a half feet tall. Now that's true, and I feel a certain way. And then I might say like I'm 4'11", That's silly. It's not true, and it feels different, right? But you can do that with things that are much more interesting than height, right? You can do it with things like, today I feel like going on a date with this person, right? And then that's very helpful, right?
I see.
So I got fascinated with how the body changes depending on whether something feels good or not, feels true or not. So I created something called Choice Compass, which is an application. Right now, it's only available on iPhone because of the camera. It uses the camera to check the pulse in your finger and figure out your heart rate. Or, and this works better, you can get a Bluetooth connection to a couple of heart rate monitors. But anyway, it's looking at your heartbeat as you think about a choice for about a minute, and then it prompts you to switch to think about another choice, like I should move and go to a different city, and you think about that, and then it prompts you, I should stay here. And after you calibrate it, takes a little work to calibrate it, but after you calibrate it to your heartbeat, it will then tell you statistically what's more likely to be a positive choice for you. So I want to help people sense inside themselves.
Yeah, on the website, you say the app helps you find which choice is bringing you more joy.
Yeah.
Which I find compelling and fascinating, because joy is one of the feelings that is almost buried these days under a lot of rubble.
Yes, the rubble of our lives. I know. It's like we're not, joy is an excellent goal. Like if you find a day in which you've had joy, you know that something good has happened. There's something good there. You actually, as a human being, can't have joy if you're doing something cruel. You can't have joy if you're stomping on other people. You won't be able to feel that. You might feel power, right? You might feel authority, but you're not going to feel joy. And so joy as a measure of sort of the goodness of your day, I think is really helpful.
That's one very important thing to remember, Professor, to always look for and bring joy to yourself and to those around you, if possible at all.
If possible at all, and that with an underscore on that, because some days you can't do that. And the worst thing you could do is beat yourself up over it. You know, like, okay, on this day that didn't work. Okay, so I'm learning, you know.
Yeah. Now, thanking you a lot for your time. Before we end our interview, we're closing to the end time. What is, in your opinion, the one thing, the most important thing regular people should take from your work? If you'd had to distill everything into one piece of advice, what would that be?
Oh, if I had to distill everything, experiment with unconditional love.
Experiment with unconditional love. Well, Professor, thank you a lot again for your time.
Vă mulțumesc, prieteni, că ați urmărit acest interviu. Sper din tot sufletul să fi găsit în el lucruri care să vă ajute să vă construiți o viață împlinită, o viață așa cum vă doriți. Vă mulțumesc, prieteni, că ați rămas împreună cu noi până la sfârșit. Data viitoare o să discutăm despre un lucru larg cunoscut, dar foarte puțin înțeles. Emoțiile umane. Să vedem de unde vin ele, cum se formează, ce impact au și cum putem să le gestionăm în așa fel încât să ne asigurăm o viață mai liniștită, mai puțin tristă, mai fericită, mai împlinită.